The crystalline chains around Zephyra's neck glowed with a cold blue light that made her emerald scales look pale and sickly. Each link was forged from compressed starlight, unbreakable by any known force in the galaxy. The young dragoness sat in the center of the containment chamber, her massive form hunched in shame and despair. She was barely 300 years old, just reaching maturity by dragon standards, but already branded as defective by the Council of Elders. The golden reproductive organs along her belly remained stubbornly dormant, refusing to respond to any of the traditional ceremonies or biological treatments the dragon physicians had attempted. "Another failure," muttered Elder Drakmor as he reviewed the latest test results on his holographic display. The ancient red dragon's eyes burned with disappointment as he looked through the reinforced transparent walls at Zephyra. "The bloodline of the Stormbringers ends with her." The Stormbringer clan had ruled the outer rim of the Andromeda galaxy for over 10,000 years. Their dragons were known for their incredible speed, their ability to navigate through asteroid fields blindfolded, and their production of the most potent dragon fire in existence. But all of that meant nothing if the bloodline couldn't continue. Zephyra's parents had died in the war against the mechanical harvester fleets, leaving her as the sole heir to a legacy that stretched back to the dawn of dragon civilization. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on her shoulders like a mountain. "The bioscans show no physical abnormalities," reported Dr. Vex, a smaller bronze dragon who served as the chief medical officer. "Her hormone levels are within normal ranges. Her neural pathways are intact. By every measure we can think of, she should be fertile." "Should be isn't good enough," growled Elder Drakmor. "The prophecies speak clearly. The Stormbringer line must continue, or the dragons will fall to the coming darkness. We cannot afford weakness." Zephyra closed her eyes and tried to block out their voices. She had heard the same conversations dozens of times over the past year. The doctors would run their tests, the elders would debate her fate, and nothing would change. She remained bound, isolated, and useless. The containment chamber was located in the heart of Draconis Prime, the massive space station that served as the capital of the Dragon Empire. Through the small porthole near the ceiling, she could see the distant stars wheeling slowly past as the station rotated to generate artificial gravity. Somewhere out there, other young dragons were flying free among the asteroids, learning to hunt, preparing to start families of their own. "We should consider termination," suggested Elder Thys, an ancient black dragon whose scales had turned silver with age. "If she cannot fulfill her biological destiny, perhaps it would be merciful to end her suffering." "No," Drakmor replied firmly. "The bloodline magic still flows through her veins. Even if she cannot reproduce, her life essence might be useful for other purposes. The war effort requires sacrifices." Zephyra's heart sank. She knew what that meant. Dragons who couldn't contribute to society were often sent to the front lines as expendable shock troops. Their life force would be drained to power the great weapons that held back the enemy fleets. It was considered an honorable death, but she didn't feel ready to die. A soft chime echoed through the chamber, indicating an incoming transmission. Elder Drakmor's claws danced over his control interface as he accepted the call. The holographic image of Commander Razik appeared, his battle-scarred features grim with concern. "Elders, we have a situation," the commander reported. "Long-range sensors have detected a small craft approaching our outer perimeter. The pilot claims to be responding to our general distress call regarding the fertility crisis." "Impossible," Drakmor snorted. "We sent that transmission only to other dragon colonies. Who would dare answer?" The ship's identification transponder shows it's registered to a human salvage operation. The pilot identifies himself as Marcus Chen, independent mechanic and engineer. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Dragons and humans had peaceful relations, but their species were vastly different. Humans were tiny, short-lived creatures who relied on technology instead of natural abilities. The idea that a human could help with a dragon biological problem was almost laughable. "A human? Doctor?" Vex's voice cracked with disbelief. What could a human possibly know about dragon physiology? They can barely understand their own reproductive systems. "Send him away," Thys commanded. "This is not a matter for outsiders." But Drakmor held up a massive claw for silence. The elder's ancient eyes glittered with curiosity. Wait. What did this human say exactly? Commander Razek consulted his notes. He claims he's solved similar problems before, says he specializes in, and I quote, impossible mechanical and biological system failures that everyone else has given up on. Preposterous. This hissed. Humans live for less than a century. What experience could he possibly have? Perhaps, Drakmor mused slowly. That's exactly why we should listen to him. We dragons have been using the same methods for thousands of years. Maybe fresh perspective is what we need. Dragons have dozens of people. All one. From her position in the containment chamber, Zephyra felt a tiny spark of hope for the first time in months. She had studied human history during her education, and she knew they had a reputation for finding unconventional solutions to problems. They might not live long, but they were incredibly creative and determined. I vote to allow the human to dock, Drakmor declared. What do we have to lose? If he fails, we're no worse off than before. Dr. Vex flared his nostrils in frustration. You're willing to risk our most precious remaining bloodline on the word of a scavenging human? This is madness. Our methods have failed, Drakmor pointed out. Traditional medicine has failed. The ancient rituals have failed. Perhaps madness is exactly what we need. The debate continued for another hour, but eventually Drakmor's will prevailed. Commander Razek was instructed to escort the human ship to a docking bay in the station's lower levels, far from the sacred chambers where important dragon business was conducted. As the council members filed out to prepare for the humans' arrival, Zephyra remained alone in her crystalline prison. She pressed her snout against the cool metal floor and tried to imagine what this mysterious human would be like. In her studies, she had learned that humans came in many different shapes and colors, and that they were known for their stubbornness and refusal to accept defeat. 3 hours later, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor outside her chamber. Zephyra raised her massive head and watched as the security doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss. The first to enter was Commander Razek, his massive bulk barely fitting through the reinforced doorway. Behind him came Dr. Vex and Elder Drakmor, their expressions ranging from skeptical to openly hostile, and between them, dwarfed by the towering dragons, walked the smallest being Zephyra had ever seen in person. Marcus Chen stood barely 6 feet tall, with grease-stained coveralls and tool-laden belt that marked him as a working man rather than a scholar. His dark hair was streaked with premature gray, and his brown eyes held an intensity that reminded Zephyra of her father's gaze when he was focused on solving a difficult problem. In his hands, he carried a battered metal toolbox that looked like it had seen action on 100 different worlds. So, Marcus said, his voice surprisingly calm as he looked up at the massive dragons surrounding him. I understand you've got a fertility problem that nobody's been able to fix. Dr. Vex snorted derisively. Human, you have no idea what you're dealing with. Dragon reproductive biology is infinitely more complex than anything your primitive science could comprehend. Marcus smiled and set down his toolbox with a metallic thunk. You know, I've heard that before. Last month, it was a crystalline collective mind that insisted their quantum consciousness matrix was too advanced for human understanding. Turned out their problem was a simple feedback loop that nobody had thought to check. He walked closer to Zephyra's containment chamber, seemingly unafraid of her massive bulk or her potentially deadly fire breath. His eyes moved methodically over her form, not with the clinical detachment of the dragon doctors, but with the practiced gaze of someone who saw machines and biological systems as puzzles to be solved. Tell me about the symptoms, Marcus said, pulling out a small handheld scanner. When did the problem start? What treatments have you tried? And don't leave anything out, even if it seems unimportant. For the next hour, Dr. Vex reluctantly provided a detailed account of Zephyra's condition. The human listened carefully, occasionally asking pointed questions that revealed a surprising depth of knowledge about both biology and engineering principles. Interesting, Marcus murmured as he reviewed the data on his scanner. Your reproductive system operates on both biological and quantum levels. Correct? The hormonal triggers have to align with specific electromagnetic field fluctuations? Yes, But that's elementary knowledge, Dr. Vex replied impatiently. Any first-year medical student knows that. And the containment chamber she's being held in, Marcus continued, his scanner sweeping across the crystalline chains. It's made of compressed starlight. That would create a very specific type of electromagnetic field, wouldn't it? A sudden silence fell over the room. Dr. Vex's bronze scales paled slightly as the implications hit him. You're suggesting, Elder Drakmor said slowly, that the containment field itself might be interfering with her reproductive system? Marcus nodded grimly. I'm not suggesting it. I'm telling you that's exactly what's happening. These chains aren't just restraining her body. They're broadcasting an electromagnetic frequency that's scrambling her biological signals. He turned to face the assembled dragons, his small human form somehow projecting absolute confidence in the face of their towering presence. The good news is, I can fix it. The bad news is, you're going to have to trust a human mechanic with your most precious bloodline. And based on what I've seen of your medical staff's attitude, that's going to be the hardest part of this whole job. Zephyra felt her heart racing as she watched the dragons' faces. For the first time in over a year, someone was offering her hope, but would the proud dragons be willing to put aside their prejudices long enough to let a human save her? The fate of the Stormbringer bloodline hung in the balance, and everything depended on whether an unlikely alliance could be forged between dragons and humanity. The argument that followed Marcus's declaration lasted for 6 hours and could be heard 3 levels away. Elder Thys demanded that the human be ejected from the station immediately, while Dr. Vex insisted that no outsider could possibly understand dragon biology well enough to help. Commander Razik supported the human's theory but worried about the political implications of relying on alien assistance. Through it all, Marcus sat quietly in a corner of the chamber, methodically disassembling and reassembling various components from his toolbox, while the dragons shouted over his head. Occasionally, he would glance at Zephyra through the containment field and offer her a reassuring nod, as if to say everything would work out fine. Zephyra found herself fascinated by the small human's calm demeanor. Even her father, brave as he was, had shown some intimidation when facing a council of angry elders, but Marcus seemed completely at ease, as if he dealt with situations like this every day. Enough, Elder Drakmor finally roared, his voice reverberating through the chamber with enough force to crack the metal walls. We have debated long enough. Human, you claim you can solve a problem that has baffled our greatest minds. Prove it. Marcus looked up from his tools with a slight smile. I thought you'd never ask. But I'm going to need a few things first. Dr. Vex snorted derisively. Let me guess. You require access to our most advanced medical equipment? Our genetic laboratories? Our quantum biomanipulation chambers? Actually, Marcus said, standing and brushing dust off his coveralls, I need a basic molecular forge, some raw materials, and about 12 hours of uninterrupted work time. Oh, and I'll need to get close enough to examine the containment system directly. The request sent another wave of protests through the assembled dragons. Dr. Vex's bronze scales flared with indignation. Absolutely not. The containment field is a complex magical construct that took months to design. One wrong move could release dangerous energies that could kill everyone in this section of the station. Marcus pulled out his scanner again and pointed it at the crystalline chains. Look, I understand your concerns, but I can't fix something I can't touch. The electromagnetic interference pattern is more complex than I initially thought. There are at least 3 different frequency bands working together to create the suppression field. He turned to Elder Drakmor with a serious expression. I need you to understand something. This isn't just a simple containment system. Whoever designed it built in multiple redundancies that are specifically tuned to disrupt dragon reproductive biology. This wasn't an accident. The chamber fell silent. Zephyra felt her blood run cold as the implications sank in. Someone had deliberately created a prison designed to sterilize dragons. Impossible. Commander Razik growled. The containment system was designed by our own engineers. They would never create something to harm their own kind. Marcus shook his head grimly. I'm not accusing anyone of deliberate sabotage. But I am saying that whoever provided the technical specifications for this system knew exactly what they were doing. The frequency modulation patterns are too precise to be accidental. He walked closer to the containment field, his scanner beeping rapidly as it analyzed the energy signatures. The base design is sound. It's the harmonic overlays that are causing the problem. Someone added extra frequency generators that create interference patterns in the same ranges as dragon reproductive hormones. Elder Drakmore's ancient eyes narrowed dangerously. Are you suggesting that someone in our own engineering department is working against us? Whoa. Elder. Well. Elder Drakmore's ancient eyes narrowed engineering department. I'm suggesting that someone gave your engineers incomplete information. Marcus replied carefully. They probably thought they were building a standard containment field. But the technical specifications they were working from had hidden modifications. The political implications of this revelation sent ripples of tension through the room. If Marcus was right, it meant that the dragon leadership had been infiltrated by enemies who were working to prevent dragon reproduction. We will investigate this matter thoroughly, Drakmore declared. But first, we must deal with the immediate problem. Human, what exactly do you need to repair the containment system? Marcus consulted his scanner readings one more time, then looked up at the towering elder. I need to build a frequency inverter that can neutralize the harmful harmonics without disrupting the containment field itself. It's going to require precise calibration and some materials that your people might not have on hand. Dr. Vex crossed his massive arms. And you believe you can accomplish this with primitive human technology? Actually, Marcus grinned. I'm planning to use a combination of human engineering and dragon magic. Your crystalline energy systems are incredibly sophisticated, but they're too rigid. Human technology is more adaptable. If I can create a hybrid system that combines both approaches, it should solve the problem without compromising security. The debate resumed, but this time, it was more focused on practical concerns rather than outright rejection of the humans' help. After another hour of discussion, Elder Drakmore made the final decision. You will have access to our engineering facilities, he announced. But you will be supervised at all times. And any modifications to the containment system must be approved by both Dr. Vex and myself before implementation. Marcus nodded agreeably. That's perfectly reasonable. But I want to be clear about one thing. If this works, it's going to be because we trusted each other. Dragon magic and human engineering each have their strengths, but together they can accomplish things that neither could manage alone. Over the next 8 hours, Marcus worked with an intensity that impressed even his skeptical dragon supervisors. He commandeered a corner of the engineering laboratory and began assembling a device that looked like nothing the dragons had ever seen before. The core was built around a human quantum processor, no bigger than Zephyra's smallest claw, but capable of performing billions of calculations per second. Around this central unit, Marcus carefully integrated crystalline components salvaged from damaged dragon equipment, creating a hybrid system that pulsed with both technological and magical energy. Dr. Vex watched over his shoulder as he worked, occasionally offering suggestions about dragon physiology that helped Marcus fine-tune his calculations. Despite his initial hostility, the bronze dragon found himself genuinely impressed by the human's knowledge and skill. Your species truly is remarkable, Doctor, Vex admitted as Marcus soldered a particularly delicate connection. I would never have thought to combine quantum processing with crystalline energy matrices. Marcus paused in his work to wipe sweat from his forehead. That's the thing about humans. We don't have the natural advantages that other species do, so we've learned to be creative with what we have. We can't breathe fire or manipulate energy fields with our minds, but we can figure out how to build machines that do it for us. But why? Dr. Vex asked, genuinely curious. Why risk your life to help a species you barely know? What do you gain from this? Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. A year ago, I was working on a mining station in the Kepler system. Pirates attacked and disabled our life support systems. My crew had about 6 hours of air left, and no way to fix the damage with the equipment we had on board. He continued working as he talked, his hands moving with practiced precision. A dragon patrol ship picked up our distress signal. They didn't hesitate for a second. They could have just marked our position and moved on. But instead, they spent 3 days helping us jury-rig a solution, saved 27 lives, including mine. And now you feel obligated to return the favor? It's not about obligation, Marcus replied, installing the final component in his device. It's about what kind of galaxy we want to live in. We can all struggle alone, or we can help each other accomplish impossible things. I know which one I prefer. The completed frequency inverter looked like a crystalline flower with technological petals, beautiful in its alien complexity. Marcus ran final diagnostics on the device, while Dr. Vex prepared the medical sensors that would monitor Zephyra's biological responses. Theoretical calculations look good, Marcus announced. The harmonic nullification should eliminate the reproductive interference without affecting the containment field's structural integrity. Elder Drakmor examined the device with ancient, experienced eyes. And if you are wrong? If this fails catastrophically? Marcus met his gaze steadily. Then, I'll take full responsibility for the consequences. But I'm not wrong. This will work. The installation process was nerve-wracking for everyone involved. Marcus had to enter the containment chamber itself, protected only by a portable shield generator and his own determination. Zephyra tried to remain perfectly still as the small human worked inches from her massive form, carefully integrating his device with the existing crystalline matrix. Frequency inverter online, Marcus announced, his voice slightly muffled by the protective helmet he wore. Beginning harmonic nullification sequence in 3, 2, 1. The change was immediate and dramatic. The cold blue glow of the containment chains shifted to a warm golden light, and the oppressive electromagnetic pressure that had surrounded Zephyra for months suddenly lifted like a weight being removed from her chest. For the first time in over a year, she could feel her natural biological rhythms returning. The dormant organs along her belly began to warm and tingle as proper hormonal circulation resumed. Her scales brightened from pale green to vibrant emerald as her body's energy patterns normalized. By the ancients, Dr. Vex breathed, watching his medical scanners register readings he had never expected to see. It's working. Her hormone levels are stabilizing. Neural activity is increasing. This is impossible. Marcus carefully backed out of the containment field and removed his helmet, grinning broadly at the assembled dragons. Actually, it was just complicated. There's a difference, but their celebration was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the station. Commander Razek's voice echoed over the communication system, tight with urgency. All senior staff to the command center immediately. We have incoming hostile ships, unknown configuration, but they're broadcasting harvester identification codes. Elder Drakmor's expression darkened. The mechanical fleets. They've found us. As the dragons rushed to respond to the threat, Marcus remained behind with Zephyra, monitoring his device to ensure it continued functioning properly. Through the chamber's porthole, he could see the distant flashes of energy weapons as the station's defenses engaged the approaching enemy ships. Human. Zephyra spoke for the first time since his arrival, her voice deep and melodious despite her youth. Thank you for giving me hope again. But I fear your timing may be unfortunate. If the harvesters are here, none of us may survive to see if your cure is permanent. Marcus looked up at her massive, intelligent eyes and smiled grimly. Well then, I guess we'd better make sure it works fast, because something tells me the galaxy is going to need every dragon it can get for what's coming next. Outside, the battle for Draconis Prime had begun, and the fate of both dragons and humans hung in the balance. The battle raged for 18 hours, and Marcus spent every minute of it working alongside the dragon engineers to adapt his frequency inverter technology for combat applications. If his theory was correct, the same harmonic principles that had suppressed Zephyra's reproductive system could be weaponized against the harvester fleet's mechanical components. It's madness, Doctor, Vex muttered as he helped Marcus integrate quantum processors with the station's main weapon systems. You're asking us to bet everything on a completely untested theory. Marcus didn't look up from his work as another explosion shook the station. Sometimes, Madness is the only rational response to an impossible situation. The harvesters have numerical superiority and superior firepower. We need an edge they're not expecting. Alderwind, Tenside, through the laboratory's viewports, they could see the battle unfolding in the void around Draconis Prime. The harvester ships were sleek, angular constructs of black metal and pulsing energy. Each one easily twice the size of the dragon fighters that swarmed around them. The mechanical fleet moved with perfect coordination, their weapons firing in synchronized patterns that overwhelmed individual defenders. But what worried Marcus most was the pattern of their attack. The harvesters weren't just trying to destroy the station. They were specifically targeting areas where dragon eggs might be stored, and their weapons seemed designed to disrupt biological rather than mechanical systems. They're not here for conquest, he realized aloud. They're here for extermination. Someone's told them about the fertility problems. Elder Drakmor, who had been coordinating the defense from the laboratory's communication center, turned to stare at the human. What are you saying? I'm saying this attack is too well timed to be coincidental, Marcus replied, his hands moving frantically over his equipment. The harvesters show up, just as we discover that the containment system was sabotaged. Someone's been feeding them information about Dragon Society. The implications sent a chill through the assembled dragons. If there was a spy among them, it explained how the enemy had known exactly how to design systems that would sterilize dragons without being detected. Commander Razik's voice crackled over the communication system. Marcus, whatever you're working on, we need it now. We've lost 12 fighters, and the enemy is preparing for a final assault. If they breach the station's main hull, it's over. Marcus activated his modified frequency inverter and watched as energy patterns flowed through the station's weapon grid. Harmonic Disruptor is online. Target the lead harvester ship and fire when ready. The result exceeded everyone's expectations. The dragon weapons, normally powerful but limited in range, suddenly reached out across impossible distances as their energy was amplified and focused by Marcus's harmonic technology. The lead harvester ship, caught completely off guard, shuddered as its internal systems began to fail in cascade patterns. Direct hit, Commander Razik reported, excitement evident in his voice. Their shields are fluctuating. Hull integrity is compromised. How is this possible? Marcus grinned as he watched his readings. Mechanical systems rely on precise frequency coordination, just like biological ones do. The harvesters use quantum-linked processors to coordinate their fleet movements. My disruptor is scrambling those links. But even as the dragon forces pressed their advantage, Marcus noticed something troubling in the data streams flowing across his screens. The harvester ships were adapting to his countermeasures faster than should have been possible. They're learning, he announced grimly. The harmonic disruption is only affecting them for a few minutes before they compensate. We need something more permanent. 1. Dr. Vex looked over his shoulder at the tactical display. What do you suggest? We've thrown everything we have at them. Marcus was quiet for a moment, studying the energy patterns flowing through his equipment. Then his expression brightened with sudden inspiration. We don't need to destroy them. We need to convert them. Convert them? Elder Drakmor's voice was sharp with confusion. What do you mean? The harvesters are machines, right? They follow programmed directives. But what if we could override their programming? The frequency inverter doesn't just disrupt systems, it can rewrite them. Marcus's fingers danced across his control interface as he began modifying the harmonic patterns. I can use the same principles that restored Zephyra's biological functions to reprogram the harvester fleet. Instead of following their original directives, they'll be compelled to protect dragon space. The work was incredibly dangerous. Marcus had to extend his consciousness directly into the harmonic field, using his human intuition to guide quantum-level modifications that no computer could calculate. Doctor. Vex monitored his vital signs as the human's brain activity spiked to levels that should have been fatal. Marcus, your neural patterns are becoming dangerously unstable, the bronze dragon warned. If you push much further, you could suffer permanent damage. Almost there, Marcus gasped, sweat streaming down his face as he fought to maintain concentration. Just need to lock in the new command protocols. The moment of success was marked by absolute silence. Across the battlefield, the harvester ships suddenly stopped firing and began turning away from their targets. Their movements became protective rather than aggressive, forming defensive screens around the dragon fighters instead of attacking them. "Impossible," Commander Razek breathed over the communication system. "The entire harvester fleet just changed sides. They're defending us now." Marcus collapsed into a nearby chair, his body shaking from exhaustion. Not changed sides, just remembered what they were originally designed for. The harvesters were created as peacekeepers, not weapons. Someone corrupted their programming. Elder Drakmor approached the exhausted human with something approaching reverence. "You have accomplished the impossible, Marcus Chen. Not only have you saved the Stormbringer bloodline, but you have given us allies in our fight against our true enemies." As if summoned by his words, Zephyra's voice echoed through the laboratory's communication system. "Elders, I request permission to join the defensive fleet. My systems are fully functional, and the Stormbringer bloodline is ready to fight." Dr. Vex's scanners confirmed what they all hoped to hear. Her reproductive system is operating normally. Hormone levels are optimal. She is fully fertile and ready for breeding when she chooses. But more importantly to the current situation, Zephyra's restored biological functions had awakened something else. The dormant, Stormbringer abilities that her parents had been famous for. Her fire burned hotter than any dragon's in living memory, and her speed through the asteroid fields was unmatched. "Permission granted," Elder Drakmor announced. "Show our enemies what the Stormbringer clan is truly capable of." The crystalline chains fell away from Zephyra as the containment field deactivated. For the first time in over a year, she spread her massive wings and felt the flow of natural energy through her body. Marcus watched from the laboratory viewports as she launched herself into space, her emerald scales gleaming like jewels against the starfield. What followed was less a battle than a demonstration. Zephyra moved through the remaining enemy forces like a living comet, her restored abilities allowing her to outfly and outfight anything the corrupted harvesters could throw at her. The fleet of converted harvesters followed her lead, their programming now focused on protecting rather than destroying. "The spy," Elder Drakmor said suddenly, his ancient mind putting together the final pieces of the puzzle. "We need to find who provided the harvesters with information about our society." Marcus nodded, still weak but determined. "My frequency inverter recorded all the harmonic signatures from the sabotaged containment system. If we analyze the data, we should be able to trace the modifications back to their source." The investigation that followed revealed the truth that shocked even the dragons. The sabotage hadn't come from within their own ranks. Instead, it had originated from a rogue faction of their own people who believed that dragon society needed to be purified by reducing the population to only the strongest bloodlines. Dr. Scarlon, a respected elder from the Frostwing clan, had been secretly collaborating with mechanical forces to eliminate what he considered inferior dragon bloodlines. The containment technology that sterilized young dragons had been his idea, disguised as a security measure. "You have helped us expose a cancer that has been eating at our society for generations," Elder Drakmor told Marcus, as they watched Scarlon being led away in chains. "But more than that, you have shown us the value of cooperation between our species." Marcus smiled wearily. "That's what humans do best. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest, but we're really good at bringing people together to solve problems." 6 months later, Zephyra announced her first successful mating, ensuring the continuation of the Stormbringer bloodline for generations to come. The converted harvester fleet had become the backbone of the dragon defense forces, their original peacekeeping programming making them ideal protectors of civilian populations. And in the engineering laboratories of Draconus Prime, dragon scientists worked alongside human technicians to develop new technologies that combined magic and machinery in ways that neither species could have achieved alone. Marcus had been offered a permanent position as Chief Technology Advisor to the Dragon Council, but he preferred to remain an independent contractor. There were too many other impossible problems scattered across the galaxy, and somebody needed to be available when species called for help. As his small ship prepared to depart for his next assignment, Zephyra landed on the docking bay to see him off. Her scales gleamed with health and vitality, and her eyes held the confidence of a dragon who knew her purpose in life. "Thank you," she said simply. "For everything." Marcus grinned as he climbed into his ship's cockpit. "Thank you for trusting a crazy human with your future. And hey, when those eggs hatch, make sure to tell the little ones that their aunt and uncle dragons have human friends who believe in doing the impossible." As his ship disappeared into the starfield, Zephyra remained on the docking bay, watching until the engines faded to nothing. The galaxy was a big place, full of problems that seemed impossible to solve. But she had learned something important from her time with Marcus Chen. Sometimes the best solutions came from the most unlikely places. And sometimes, all it took was one person willing to believe that impossible just meant nobody had tried the right approach yet. The Stormbringer bloodline would continue. The dragons had new allies among both the converted harvesters and their human friends. And somewhere out there, a small human mechanic was flying toward the next impossible problem that needed his particular brand of stubborn creativity. In the end, that's what made humans special in a galaxy full of powerful species. They never learned to give up, and they had a talent for turning impossible into merely difficult, and difficult into routine. The future looked bright for both dragons and humans, and Marcus Chen had played a small but crucial role in making sure that future would include both species, working together to defend the peace they had all helped to create.